There's positivity in the brokenness, right? Like, so when you're sitting there and you're in the ambulance, you see people scattering around, helping other people, strangers, nurses, doctors. That's God, right? That's the act that I see now. I see that all the time now. I see it in everybody's hardships when they explain a story. And so that's why I feel like it's a gift that you can enlighten people to see that.
Welcome to the Hope Warrior Project podcast, where we bring you an extra dose of hope to help you get over the humps of life. I'm Stephanie Martino.
And I'm Lydia Zuniga. And together we are bringing you real stories of hope from real people. We believe by hearing other people's stories of challenge and transformation, we can all gain some hope for ourselves.
So if you've been looking to find and hold on to hope, you're in the right place. Join us on this journey as we all become warriors of hope.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hope Warrior Project podcast. Today we have Dana Roe with us, and she has a very unique story of actually she was trying out for the Olympics and found herself in a place where she was not able to walk anymore and experiencing incredible ongoing pain throughout this whole process. She somehow managed, while raising 4 children, to get through like this very, very challenging time, as you can imagine. Me about to be a mother of 4, I can't wrap my mind around that. But this whole journey that she was on taught her a lot of priceless lessons that she's going to share with us today. So we're really excited to get into her story because it's really incredible. Thank you so much, Dana, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you, ladies, for having me. I'm super excited. I'm just excited that you guys even created this platform for people like myself to share stories. So it's been really an enlightening thought in my head to even be able to share this. So I'm really excited to share my story in hopes that someone's listening and I can reach out and just create a positive vibe in someone's head that they are able to, move forward with their hope. So I'm really excited. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. And we are excited to have you here too. And obviously we've chatted with you a bit before today. So yeah. we know some of your story, and you do have a really fantastic, I don't know if you would have described it as fantastic as you were going through it, but looking back, it's quite the story. But in particular, we're talking about this, the issue that, you ended up having pain, unbearable pain that kind of halted things in your life. And, having to have surgery, great, going to have surgery, get it fixed. But what is this story? I mean, it was supposed to be kind of a minor story or surgery, right? Get it fixed. What happened? What's the real story?
So to backtrack a little bit, I was an avid runner. It was kind of my outlet in life, just having a busy life with my 4 kids, and it kind of just was my thing that I did every morning, right? Like I woke up in the morning, I pay attention to my needs, and then I would come home, wake up my children, and then kind of be full on the rest of the day. So it was kind of my thing. But in the mix of that, my foot started hurting, and only when I ran. So I thought, I'm sure it's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to go to the doctor, check it out. Maybe they can give me like an insert or something. Long story short, fast forward, they had said that I had this little bone on the side of my foot. It's called a navicular bone. Most people at the age of around 10 will have so much pain in their foot that they have to have this bone removed. So I didn't even know I had this extra bone. And they said, it's going to be a very simple surgery. We're just going to remove this bone and you're going to be on your way in, 3 months after a little bit of rehab. I woke up from surgery. I had a cast on my foot, and I looked at my husband and I'm crying, and he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I can't feel my toes. There's something wrong. There's something wrong." My foot started turning colors. They take the cast off, put the cast back on, trying to just kind of figure out what the main reason of this pain. And there was, even though I couldn't feel it and move my foot, I could feel this pain, this burning pain. Fast forward 3 more weeks, no one can figure out what's wrong with my foot. I can't walk, I can't stand, I can't move my toes. And so things are spiraling out of control in my brain on what my future is going to look like. So it's crazy when you have something and it's only so short lived, right? This was only 3 weeks, but I'm thinking this whole broadband of my life in these 3 weeks, like I'm never going to walk, I'm never going to run. We all naturally, our minds go there, unfortunately. And through this journey, you'll see how, God presents in mysterious ways when I didn't even know he was always there. So I didn't really know he was there yet. I always followed Jesus. I always went to church as a young child. I knew of him. I knew that he was with me. I prayed, but I didn't trust him. There had so many things in my past that happened that I was like, I'm just going to keep going through the motions and maybe he'll pop up one day, but I'm just going to keep doing this thing called church and praying and stuff like that. And I'll just keep having hope that he's going to pop up in my life. But I didn't. At this very moment, I was drowning in thoughts, having a husband and family and working and all these things in between. When you hear about someone's story, you think, it's an awful story, but then when you break it down and think about all those things you're doing that day with that story and that foot on top of all the pain, it adds up. So long story short, I hunted for doctors trying to find answers. I was my own advocate. My husband would help. And I get a phone call from the doctor who I was quite frankly angry at because I thought maybe he ruined my foot. I was looking for malpractice stuff. I was looking for things. I was researching his name. Like, how could this guy ruin my foot? Like, why is this happening? He calls me up. He says, I've been doing some research and some thought. I think you have CRPS. And I was like, I've never heard of this. I don't even know what this is. He's like, come on in. And I'm like, I can't come in. Like, and I kind of was like making up excuses in my head of why I wouldn't come in. But then I surrendered. I said, okay, I'll come in. And my husband's like, we're going back. What? Like, we're going back. Like, what are we going to do? This has been 4 months. You can't stand yet. We can't find how. I'm like, let's go in and see what he has to say. And he said, well, there's this place downtown. It's a rehab facility. It's called RIC. It's now Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. He goes, well, there's usually a 3-year waiting list for this program. But I wanted to let you know that I called and I got you in. And I was like, wait, what? Like overwhelmed with emotion of happiness mixed with confusion and sadness and rehab. What? I don't even know. He's like, this is what I really think it is. I talked with my colleagues. They think it is this too. It's where your body goes into like a fight or flight kind of mode where your brain smudges the region of your body. So your brain activates, movement of arms, legs, limbs, stuff like that. And the area of my brain was smudged, kind of almost like a stroke patient, where you have to go through extensive rehab to get that mobility back. So the area of my brain that was smudged was affecting my leg. Mainly my foot, but then my foot to like my glute was affected. So I was not able to bear weight. I was not able to move my toes. I would wear this brace to kind of use as a balancing device with my walker in the wheelchair. So I took a leap of faith. I adjusted my schedule. My lovely parents came in and, scooped up kids. I had people make meals from the church I went to. People were coming out of the woodwork that I kind of lost track with because the pain, just there's so much going on at that time. I kind of didn't connect with friends really well at the time. And all of a sudden people are coming in, helping with laundry, dishes, kids. So I went to the rehab, got the consultation. And they said, yeah, you have CRPS. I said, okay, what does this entail? And they said, well, you have to come every day for 8 hours, but it's in the city. You can make this work, right? And I said, yeah, it's working. I don't know how it's going to work, but it's going to happen. This needs to happen. So yeah, I went to rehab it was originally a month program. And my therapist, Dr. Feldman, kind of changed my life too through this whole process. She said, we believe in you and we feel like, your time here is not done. So we're going to lengthen your stay here. Your insurance says it was okay. Are you okay with that? Okay, like that sounds like a great idea. So I felt really hopeful. But I kind of didn't really trust in the process yet because I hadn't seen change yet. So whatever, I'll try it because what else do I have to lose? So we went for it, and that next day, so that was a Friday, Monday came, and I'm going to start this new journey again, right? I just finished my month, and now I have this gift, right? I have more time. So what am I going to do this time? I'm like, maybe I'm just not working hard enough. Like I've exhausted all of my means, right? I went there, I did the motions, I did everything the therapist told me to do. I eat better, I eliminate alcohol, I try to eliminate medicines, I try to do all these things to change my metabolism, my metabolic system. We're trying to figure out, like, how is this not working yet? This isn't working. The therapists are stumped, the doctors are stumped, but I think that's really why they kept me on, because my time wasn't done, whatever it was. So I go through the motion, I wake up in the morning, my husband drops me off at the train, I have my walker, I get on the train, this is every morning, 6 a.m, get off the train station, get in the cab in my walker, I get in the cab, and I'm like, this day feels different, So I sat there and I literally was in the cab praying out loud. Excuse me, I'm gonna get teared up. And I just said, Jesus, can you help me? I can't do this alone. I surrender, and I didn't even care what the cab driver was thinking. I was yelling it out loud. Please, I can't do this alone. I need you, And so at that point in my life, I had never cried out to Jesus. And so it felt really vulnerable, but I was like, this is where I'm going with this, because it felt right. And heck yeah, it felt right. Because that day at therapy, they did this mirror therapy where you put a mirror between your legs and you move. It's my left foot that is the challenging foot, and my right foot. When you put the mirror between your legs, you move your right foot, your good foot or your good limb, whatever is not affected. So it mirrors an image to replicate a good foot, right? So you're looking at the mirror, you got this left foot moving. So you're moving the foot at the same time, right? You're tapping your left foot, or what you think you're tapping, but in my head, I think I'm moving it. And prior to this, it was every day. Did it move? No, I'm so sorry. Did it move? No, I'm so sorry, because I could mentally feel it moving, but my brain was so smudged that it wasn't moving. So I had this phantom pain. I had this phantom movement where I'd think it moved, but it didn't. So that very moment, I look at the mirror and I move my left foot as I thought I always moved it. And they said, your toes moved. And I was like, wait, what? They're like, they moved. Do it again, do it again, do it again. And I kept doing it. And sure enough, I'm squeezing my toes. My toes are twitching. I'm able to like tap my foot up and down. I mean, the therapists were jumping up and down. Everyone's yelling. It was as much as a full room of joy as you can imagine. So me even explaining it is not even giving it justice, but it was a huge day. From that day forward, I knew that God was on my side, and I am going to trust him. Like, just trust this path, and trust the doctors and everyone. I could feel the energy, even that everybody could feel it in that room. It was almost like the Holy Spirit was in there, and we were all freaking out. And and that even stems to like the people I met in the waiting rooms, right? Like, I was this girl who got this extra time, and but I really think of it now as it was such a gift, and I, even waiting in the waiting room and talking to people who just came in like I did that very first day, just crying and broken and feeling so vulnerable and not trusting this process. Specifically, this lady was sitting next to me, and I looked at her, and I said, how you doing? And she's like, terrible. And she's crying in her wheelchair. And I said, I just want to let you know, you need to trust the process. Just trust the process. She's looking at me like, who who are you? Like, what? And I'm like, just trust the process. Believe me, seems kind of hokey pokey at the beginning. I'm telling you, it's going to work. Just trust in the process. Okay. So that lady calls me. It was about 6 months later, because I gave her my phone number, because at this point I'm just ready to like praise and give everyone my phone number to tell them how this works, and you got to love God, and it's a real thing, trust in it, you know. And she calls me up. It was 6 months later. This lady was engaged, she was getting married, and she calls me and she said, hey, can I send you a picture quick? And I'm like, sure. And keep in mind, I hadn't talked to this lady at all. She just popped up on my phone one day, and she left a message, and I called her back. She said, hey, I'm that girl who was in the waiting room, and I wanted to say thank you. And I said, oh, okay. And wow. And she's like, really? No, I don't think I would have gotten through with it without you. And I said, I wasn't even there. And she goes, no, but you were there at the very moment that I needed you. And I said, thank you. I said, that was God shining through me, you know. And so she walked down the aisle, not thinking she would ever. So I don't know. I feel like when you have these struggles and these journeys, it wasn't always meant for me. I'm able to shine this light on someone else who might be going through that, and it's a real gift. So,
I mean, I have to say, like, that whole story, I mean, you told us that in a matter of minutes, but this was months.
Yeah.
Right? You had been experiencing this pain, severe pain. I think you had told us when we talked before that this CRPS is one of the most severe pains that there is.
So at one point, my pain got so bad that I had threatened to basically cut below my knee. I'd always thought maybe a prosthetic would be better because the pain was so unbearable. I cried out loud in front of my parents, my family. I'd never been one to show a lot of pain. And so I was just really completely messed up at that point. I had so many medications in me, and I was feeling so bad. Like I had thoughts of taking not my life, but literally the pain of my foot was so bad that I was threatening to cut my leg off with a butter knife. So to think that even entered my mind, I knew at that point, you know, it was bad, really bad.
And I wanted to point out two things that you said, because I want people to definitely take that away from your story. Is one thing that I really connected with was you saying, like, you always knew there was a God, right? You were like raised in faith, but you always felt like he wasn't in your life, like personally. And I can totally relate. Like, that's exactly how I felt growing up. Like, I believed in him 100%. Like, I believed there was something out there, but I didn't think he was concerned with me, with like what was my circumstances. I didn't think he was in that. I just thought he was doing bigger things, right? Big picture things, which he is, but like, he's also a very personal God too. And so for me, like, you know, we shared my story a few episodes ago, and it was feeling him like personally there with me, which is like that beautiful gift that you got when you prayed. And like, so the other thing I wanted to point out was you said, like, what can I be doing? Like, maybe I need to do more. I definitely felt that way. Is like, I'm not doing enough. I got myself here to this place. Like, what was I doing wrong? And to the point where you were considering cutting off your own leg. Like, that's another, like, what can I do?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's a physical act of you doing something to relieve yourself of your pain. Right. And it took you saying, like, I'm not doing anymore. Like, I'm turning to you, God, to do, right? Like, you surrendering to like whatever he had in his plan. And then he stepped in. So I think that's like a huge lesson, is that sometimes I feel like he just waits for us to like exhaust ourselves and like realize that like we can't do it on our own, and that's okay, right? Because that's what he's here for. But he just waits until we ask, even though he probably could have like relieved us a lot sooner. It's like there's a huge lesson in the whole, like, sometimes you can't do it all, you know, and you just have to kind of sit back and be like, okay, I'm waiting on you now.
Well, that's why I love what you guys are doing, because at one point you think like, gosh, I'm 44 years old. And at 40 years old, it took me this long to, to, to realize that I had to just trust in him and surrender my pain and lean on him and look around and see how much really good stuff is going on, in the midst of the chaos, right? Because everyone has chaos in their life and you can't hide from it, and it's there. And every day there's this little something that maybe didn't go right in your day. But if you can look at the big picture, and through all the hard parts, and I didn't really see that till this foot issue, and it's opened up so much in my life. So can I say that I'm sad about my foot and the whole thing that's happened to my foot? It's a bummer, but it's changed my life in so many great ways. I get to share stories with people, sending them hope as well. And I really think that God is using me in that way too, which feels such a blessing to me.
Oh, absolutely. I could see that. And, it's these experiences that I think then help us through the next challenge.
Right. Yeah.
Lydia and I were talking even, I think, earlier today, and it's like, sometimes we're just looking for like, what can I do just to make life good? Just figure out and then my life will be good. Well, there is no silver bullet, no magic pill. There's nothing that's just going to all of a sudden make our lives just go smoothly. Mm-hmm. And that, if we dwell on that, it can be really discouraging. But looking for the lessons, looking at, what did we learn through this, this very painful, emotionally and mentally, experience that you went through, but the things that you learned from that, and then how did that prepare you for future challenges that are always going to come. So I think that, it's choosing that, to see it that way though. You can choose to look at a situation how you want. Yeah. And how you look at it can completely change how you learn from it and what it does for your life and even your mental mindset around it.
Well, it's funny. I wake up now. It's a ritual that I do every morning. I wake up, I swing my legs over, I bend, I'm sitting there with my legs down and I'm sitting on the bed, and I'm really just thankful and appreciated for like my life. Just really, truly, I give a pause in the morning and I kind of reflect on everything I've gone through, and not in a bad way, not everything I've gone through in a bad way, like boohoo me, but like, wow, again, I always say trust in it, but like, again, this day is going to be a good day. Like my feet are on the ground. I'm moving forward. There's good stuff happening today. So it's a mindset. And the therapist that at RIC, the rehab place, she had reminded me too through the whole journey that, when you surrender, there's this weight lifted from your shoulders. And on her side of things, it was a therapeutic side, but on my side, it was, my faith mixed with that. And she had always said to me, slow and steady won the race. And I think that most of us are in this like ever seeking, everything needs to change and it needs to happen right now. And everybody wants this, I'm going to do it and I'm going to get it and it's going to happen right now. And always these quick fixes, right? But it wasn't this way for my foot. And I think that's what the difference was in all my other hardships, right? Like I couldn't see an end in sight. I had no idea if I was going to walk. I had no idea if I was even going to run or be able to squat down and pick anything up. Because at that point, I couldn't do any of those things. I was relying on other people. But I've learned to slow down and just listen and look and feel, and all the good vibes, right, come in when you just be a little bit stiller and slow your life down and really think about how great life can really be when you look around it and see all the good things. Because at that point, I didn't see that the therapists were helping, because to me, nothing was helping. Nobody was helping me. I had this mindset of like, nobody knows what they're doing. You know what I mean? Right. But it wasn't that. I just didn't see it,
Exactly. So you talked about, some of the lessons that you learned. You've already mentioned some of those. Are there other, big lessons that you learned through this experience that you maybe haven't mentioned yet?
Another terrible circumstance that popped up, and we had talked about this before, is my kids were in a pool accident a couple years ago. And during that experience, my kids were poisoned by chlorine. High amounts of chlorine were dumped in the pool. And two of my children were in critical condition. And at that point, my life got stirred around again. I trusted in the process, but my whole family didn't, right? So we went to my pastor, Pastor Warren, who I love dearly. And he counseled us one day, and my whole family was in this room in his office. And my one daughter was crying. We're all crying because we're vulnerable, and there's medicals and there's medical bills, and it was constant, right? From this pool accident. And I'm just going through the motions, but I'm still positive, right? Like, I'm super positive, I think, because my foot thing helped. But my kids weren't feeling it, right? They were probably like how I was with my foot. They just, why is this happening? Why are all these bad things happening to us? Everything always happens to our family. And she cried out, and she, cried to the pastor and said, if all these things are happening, you say there's a God, where is he? Where is God? If there is really a God, where is he? And why wasn't he there when I was injured in the pool, and my siblings, and everyone's crying and bleeding, and it was like a war scene, right? And she's traumatized, right? They're all traumatized from this. And he paused for a second. We're all crying, literally crying, like out loud. And he's super content, and he pauses, and he says, what do you mean, where was he? He was everywhere. God was everywhere. And what do you mean? Well, all these people came out of their homes to help you guys. You guys were outnumbered. You have 6 people in your family. Everyone's injured, the 4 kids or whatever. Strangers were coming out. A lifeguard picked up one of my daughters and took her back. The ambulance came. Look at you guys are before me, and we're all here, in front of me, talking about this. And you're asking where God was. He was there. But you didn't see it in the mix of things. And so when you're asking me, is there lessons? I think the main lesson that I can, share with others is, like I said earlier, there's chaos, right? It's not going away, whether it's big or small. You can be the one to rate it yourself. But there's positivity in the brokenness, right? Like, so when you're sitting there and you're in the ambulance, you see people scattering around, helping other people, strangers, nurses, doctors. That's God, right? That's the act that I see now. I see that all the time now. I see it in everybody's hardships when they explain a story. And so that's why I feel like it's a gift that you can enlighten people to see that, isn't it? Like, do you guys feel the same thing? It's kind of like when you share a story, or when you hear someone's story, you can say, when they give you a sad story, you can say, well, this is what I see, right? This is what I see in this story. And someone will be like, oh, I didn't think about that, right? So I think that the lesson that I've learned, and I'm hopefully sharing with others, is that there is a lot of positive out there in the brokenness and the sad stories that we all see.
Like, I read in a book or somewhere where it said, look for the help. Because anytime you just look a little bit to the right, like you're looking at the victim of whatever just happened, and you're like, oh my God, how could this happen? Like, look at this tragedy, look at the pain. And you're just staring at that. But if you literally just shift your eyes over like a foot, you see somebody helping them, or you see multiple people. And the ratio of help versus like person in pain is dramatically in the favor of people helping, right? It's always like times 10. I don't know what the general ratio is, but like God shows up times 10, times 100, so maybe it's not God's job to keep us from the pain, but it is God's job to step in like once it's happened, because that's what's, making us stronger.
Yeah.
Also just as a body, right? As a unit. because one person suffers and then everybody feels it, and it brings us closer together.
Yeah, and on that, and I think, I think this came to my mind when we were talking before about this idea of, what we're choosing to look at. Like Lydia said, you look for the help. And when we look for the good, it affects other things. And so I go back to your example of this mirror therapy. You had this mirror between your legs. And so in your mind, you were seeing your left foot move, right? It wasn't, it was your right foot, but it was in the mirror.
Right.
But you were looking at the positive. You were looking at this good thing happening, and it affected reality. Like it made your left foot did move. And so if you were looking at your left foot the whole time and not focusing on like the moving right foot, who knows? I mean, I'm not taking away what God can do, but my point is like what we look at has a real impact on our brain and other things in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. The perfect little analogy, like built in right into your story.
Yes. We love it when that happens.
A recap on where I am today, which is even like greater. I love to hear the end of people's journeys, right? Mm-hmm. So they said that I would never run, even with all the rehab. I felt, the beginning of all that, I can't imagine myself not running again. I can't imagine. That's who I was. That was me. I was a runner. I had these titles in my head. This is how I was going to play out my life. I was an athlete. I was a runner, but I found love in walking. I found love in biking. So, when they say you can't do something, once again, always keep that hope that just because someone says that you can't do something, that's based on like statistics, right? Like most people with CRPS can't do this, or but everybody's story is different, and you have to trust in that you were born magnificently. Your story is different than the next person's story, and that's another thing that I think a lot of people get discouraged with. You try to research a medical ailment, or you try to find a story that's similar to yours. And when you read a story that has a bad ending, like you were saying, Lydia, you can't unsee it, or you can't unfeel it, and you can't unthink it. And you're thinking that's what's going to happen. But when you have a positive, like when things went accordingly in my brain, when I decided to surrender in the cab and work really hard and trust in the whole process of the rehab, I was moving mountains, now I can jump a little bit. It's not how I pictured myself jumping at this point in my life, but I'm going to take it, I'm going to take it, because if I jump just a little bit, maybe tomorrow I can jump a little bit higher, and maybe the next day I can jump a little bit higher. So I have so many goals now. They're different goals than what I had before. My old goals were, I'm going to run a 5K in under, 16 minutes, whatever. Now my new goal, which I finally found peace in, right? And that's a part you have to just let go and just be okay with it. Mm-hmm. And I've surrendered to that. I'm okay with it now. I have a race bike. I was never a biker before. I didn't even care about biking because I was a runner, right? And so now I bike. I have a race bike, and I walk, and I can just think when I'm walking. It's a different motion, but I get the same thing out of it. I can go do it on my own. I'm super grateful for walking. Never thought I would say that. And so where I am today, I'm able to, I'm just shocked and just grateful for this body that I have. And I am blessed to be able to share the story of this hope, because people need to hear stuff like this, right? People need to hear that you got to trust in your journey and the process and your faith, because God is moving mountains and it is everywhere. You just got to listen for the good stuff and see the good stuff. And yeah, so I am happy with the outcome, and I am able to walk and do all the things that I was hoping I'd be able to do at this point in my life. And I only see it moving even farther in the journey. Hopefully I'll be able to, my goal is to be able to finish a half marathon someday. So that's kind of on my bucket list.
Wow, that's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. And you said, you're wanting to share your story, and
Yeah.
we think that's important. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this podcast, right? And it is so helpful, I think, to hear what other people have been through. We can connect to parts of their stories, maybe not all of it,
Mm-hmm.
but we can connect to the challenges and some of the feelings. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And I know too that this is, making a difference in your family,
Mm-hmm.
even just like the pool
Mhm.
incident that you shared,
Yeah.
and that experience. Obviously, they had their own experience, but tell us a little bit about, kind of what's going on with your daughters today. Since they started
Yeah.
a program, and I had to believe that this had to been some inspiration from
Yeah.
your life.
When they were younger, they started a organization called Sisters Giving Hope, and it stemmed from a jewelry box that I had given them for Christmas. My oldest daughter at the time was 8, and the other one, my twins were 6, and my son was just a baby. And my daughter, she was 8 years old. She's beating her little bracelet, and she came up to me and she's like, "Mommy, we should make bracelets and give them to people, and people could buy them. People could buy our bracelets, and we could give the money to people who need the money." And I said, "Okay, let's do that." Like, just real nonchalant. Like, I didn't think it was going to really go anywhere because they're kids, but I could see the compassion in her eyes. Like, she really meant it. Like, she really wanted to start doing this. So lo and behold, they start making bracelets and loom bracelets and inviting their friends to make bracelets and so on and so forth. And from that time moving forward to now, they have raised over $35,000 making homemade crafts. They've branched out and they make other arts and crafts. They face paint. They do different things to raise money, and then they give that money to someone in need, whether it is an individual or an organization. They also started their own little fundraisers within Sisters Giving Hope. So they just finished Bundles of Hope project, which they collected for 3 months. We put it out on Facebook. We used that means, and people like right around Thanksgiving to New Year's would collect items, put them in garbage bags and put them on their front porch, and we would drive to pick them up. So we collected items for the homeless, and we got some volunteers, and we packed 85 homeless bags to give to those who needed them in the city and in different over here at the PAD shelter. So people would be able to be blessed with those. So yeah, they do really great stuff. I feel like God really, my life, I feel like if you could sum it up of why I'm here and what my purpose is for being here. I always ask my children what you think your purpose is. And my purpose really is, I believe that I was put on this earth as, I feel like I have a serving heart for sure. And I think God blessed me with that. And I think that just having that in the home has guided the children, right, to be that way. And it's lovely to see that, excuse me, it's lovely to see that before myself, right? Like, see how they're becoming young ladies, and my son is now getting involved and stuff like that. So it's really awesome. I love it.
I think you've got a little group of world changers on your hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the questions that we're adding into our interviews going forward, because me and Stephanie are just super curious as to when people see our logo, Hope Warrior, I think that when you see it before you hear any of what it is or what our stories are, any of it, people just connect to it on their own level, right? Because we all just have our own unique experiences. So we just want to know, for yourself personally, when you see Hope Warrior, like what does it mean to you?
What Hope Warrior means to myself personally is trying to stay hopeful in every situation that's handed to you, right? Mm-hmm. So seeing the goodness out of a bad situation. Mm-hmm. Awesome. And I see like the connection with all of your stories, right? That's what you're trying to spread. That's what I can see you guys trying to do. And I think it's amazing, really, truly amazing.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, I'm really anxious to continue asking this question and getting each individual's unique perspective on it, because I mean, hope in our lives, it comes from individual unique experiences. And so there's a personal meaning that people can take from it. So thank you for sharing yours with us.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing your story with us today. Like I said earlier, like you told us this story in a matter of minutes, but this was it was such a long period of time in your life and so impactful. I'm sure there was so much more involved than what you were even able to get into today. But I think you gave us a really good indication of your journey, your turning point, how God came through for you and has now made a big difference in your life going forward. So if anyone, listening is really connecting with your story, maybe even through some of the challenges that you went through specifically, how could they maybe connect with you if they wanted to reach out and maybe ask questions or just, get a little support?
Yeah, I would love to hear from anyone. I'm very open about sharing stories and just being honest with the journey that I had. So anyone who would like to talk to me, I'd be open to that. You guys can either contact me by my email, which is Dana Roe at sbcglobal.net, or our Sisters Giving Hope Facebook page. So there's like Messenger on there, and I check that almost daily. So that would be a great place to contact me.
Okay, great. We'll link both those links in our show notes as well, so people can easily access that. So
perfect.
Well, thank you again. Really enjoyed talking to you again and hearing more about your story, and anxious to see what else you and your children are going to do in this world, because you're doing great things already.
Well, thank you, ladies.
To all you Hope Warriors out there, thank you for joining us today to hear another incredible story.
We hope that you are encouraged and are taking away something positive for your own life. If you want to hear more stories like the one today, be sure to subscribe to this podcast.
And don't forget to tell your friends about it, because we can all use some extra hope in our lives.